Today, I'm so honored to be speaking about sibling rivalry with today's special guest on the show. She is an amazing mom of three, an accredited parent coach and mentor. She supports parents on their journey to becoming the best version of themselves with conscious parenting at the heart of her work. Please welcome Coach Maysaa. Thank you so much for being on the show. Welcome.
Hello. Hi, thank you.
So if you'd like, you can tell us a little bit more about yourself and how you got into conscious parenting.
Okay, so there's like a bit of a background to my story of conscious parenting, and it starts off with me being a teacher. So I was and graduated as a primary school teacher, and I was teaching for a little bit before I had children, and I thought I'm going to have children and it's going to be so easy because I've got the degrees, I've studied, child behavior, I know what I'm doing. And then I had my kid and I was like, what? Why isn't he listening? Why isn't he like adoring everything that I'm saying and doing exactly what I'm saying? And why is he always so clingy and crying? And so that kind of started this idea of me wanting to explore and get some answers to my questions, because I wasn't satisfied with the answer of that's just how children are. And, this idea of a hierarchy, because I'm the parent, I know everything and the child just listens, pretty much with fear. It just wasn't sitting well with me. And I thought that there's something that's going on that I need to learn. And so just a little bit of an addition to introduction, I've actually got 4 children. And so by the time, that's okay. So by the time, each child would come along with their own temperament and their own personality, I began to realize that it might not be the kid. It might be something about me, something that I'm lacking or missing or not understanding. And so in early kind of 2012-ish, so 10 or so years ago, I stumbled across a book called The Conscious Parent by Dr. Shafali, and I was like, this is different. And I loved it. I felt like it spoke to my soul, and I started to understand that being conscious is all about living in the present moment. And so when I was parenting my children, at that point I had 3, I was either living in the past or worrying about the future. And so with this new kind of mindset that I started to develop, I realized that I needed work. I needed to understand how to cultivate that mindset. So into therapy, I got some coaching done, and then I started to study how to be a conscious parent coach under the pioneer herself, Dr. Shafali. And 10 years later, here I am.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I love how you kind of went into self-reflection, because oftentimes it's really, really hard for us to not be looking on all the other factors. Like, it's not me, it's them. And I love how you reflected and said, okay, it's time for me to grow. I love that. That's amazing. And look at how far you've come. And now you're touching so many parents and guiding them and helping them be the best version of themselves. That's amazing. I love that.
Thank you so much.
So what would you say, there are so many misconceptions about conscious parenting. What would you say, is like the key notion of conscious parenting? How would you like define it and kind of X out all those misconceptions?
So the biggest misconception that I find when it comes to conscious parenting is that a conscious parent coach is a conscious parent is a permissive parent. So there's this connotation towards the way I parent. Sorry, let me just say that again. There's this idea that conscious parents are, yes, sure, sweetie, and no, darling, and a really kind of over-exaggerated, gentle way to answer. And that's got to do, I think, with the negative connotation that society has with the word gentle, because gentle parenting, positive parenting, conscious parenting all share this similar kind of foundation of, the parent needs to be in control of their emotions. And so with this word gentle, people assume that gentle parenting means gentle words all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't realize that that's got nothing to do with the actual parenting itself. Gentle parenting means that, and conscious parenting means that you have done the work on yourself first, so that when you're in a relationship with your child, you are the adult in the relationship and you are mature and you have control over your emotions, because you have the understanding that a child can't possibly have control over their emotions. I mean, scientifically and neurologically speaking, a child's brain is immature. It's not built yet. They haven't had the life experience. And so if your child is having a tantrum because they wanted the blue plate instead of the red plate, and you're like, come on, it's just the blue plate. Like, what's the big deal? Then you yourself are not being in control of your emotions. Yeah. And so, that's one big misconception. And another misconception is that conscious parenting, gentle parenting comes easily. Yeah. And I'm just like, oh, I wish, firstly, but here's my challenge to everybody listening. You try it. You try staying in control of your emotions and rising above that reaction that you want to do. And you try accessing that deep breath to get you to maturity, being in control, so that you can keep your child and yourself safe. It's not easy. It's actually way harder. What is easy, should I say, is reacting. It's so easy for me to go back to my old patterns, react, get angry, yell, shout, passive aggressive. That is easy because my brain for 40 odd years has been wired for that. What's harder is rewiring it so that when my child lies to me, I have to pause, connect to the fact that this has nothing to do with them sabotaging my life.
Yeah.
Understand that my nervous system is in a state of stress, and then access the part of my brain that's got logic and reasoning and problem solving.
Yeah.
You try doing that, to the naysayers out there. It is tricky, but it's doable thanks to, the brain having neuroplasticity. It's doable thanks to, a lot of coaches out there like yourself helping parents connect those dots into what they can do instead of reacting.
Exactly.
They're the two biggest misconceptions.
Exactly. Yeah, we get that all the time, especially because we're on social media as well, and parents are always like, well, exactly this type of parenting is the reason why there's so many disrespectful grown-ups. And I'm just like, okay, where's that connection? That doesn't make any sense to connect those two things.
Yeah,
and
it's true. It's true what you're saying. Like, there's a quick judgment that because I haven't sent my child to time out, so say he's, snatched a toy from his sister for the 10th time, and I still don't send him to time out, there's an automatic connection that my child is going to grow up and keep snatching or whatever disrespectful behavior.
Yeah.
And who said, because how can I say this politely, out of like hundreds of clients that I've met, not one client has ever said to me, Maysaa, I'm so sad. In my childhood, my mum wouldn't send me to time out and she would continuously try to connect with me to understand what the problem was.
Yeah.
I see the other clients. I'm sure you do as well.
Yeah.
Maysaa, my mum kept sending me to time out. Maysaa, my parents didn't listen to me. I was always branded the naughty kid. They're the adults that are suffering today.
Yeah.
No child grows up to be an adult and is traumatized by a parent being conscious and gentle and positive.
Exactly. And I think it goes back to what you were saying in the beginning. Permissive is not the conscious parenting that we're talking about, surely they have some conscious aspects in there, but being permissive, there's no extreme that is good for a child. So if you're extremely permissive or you're extremely like into timeouts, those two things aren't good, because kids, they want to, get to know you, who you really are, with your boundaries, your needs, your emotions, and that in a conscious way is healthy for them and their development.
Yeah, definitely. I think with permissiveness, it's a very high empathy kind of parenting and low guidance. And what we want to do is we want to get to that middle ground where we're completely empathetic that they wanted that red toy, but we're going to guide them away from snatching, hitting, hurting another child to get the red toy. So, people are often surprised when they do hear that, if your 5-year-old is running into a busy street, then you need to shout. You need to, do something. You need to physically run and grab the child. It's not a matter of, oh, sweetie, no crossing the
No, it's
That's right. So, there's this common sense that's disappearing because we're so worried that we're either going to traumatize or we're not going to traumatize. But the idea is, like, if we go back to our original job, our original role as a parent, it will help us understand what it is that we need to do. And our original job and roles as parents is, I can kind of classify them into 3 kind of dot points, is to validate, hold boundaries, and connect with your child. And so you have to ask yourself in that moment, am I doing my job? Because the Gottmans did this research piece, and it's published out there. You can check it out on the Gottman Institute website. But essentially they found that love was not enough to raise a successful child, because love is relative. I mean, what is love? Everybody's got a different, definition of love. And so what they found with children is that, empathy, validation, connection, holding boundaries is something that really resonates with a child. However, big disclaimer, no kid is going to say, thank you, Mum, for holding that boundary. Oh my God, you only let me sit on the iPad for 20 minutes. You are looking after my health. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of what, when parents go into this and they see if it's going to work or not, they expect, okay, they're just going to accept that I said no, and everything is, that's the kind of easygoing life that they expect is going to happen, but that's not.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up, because that's such an important point, right? Like, even myself, when I go back to my early days of being coached, I remember thinking, okay, I got this. I now know what to do. I now know how to hold a boundary, right? Except the missing element, and this is something that you can't coach anyone on, is your kid is allowed to react in the way they want to react. They're allowed to put up a fight, negotiate, express themselves, right? Then you still have to continue with what you just learned, holding a boundary, empathetic, you are the mature adult, because the conversation isn't going to go like I just said. They're not going to say, thank you, Mum. They're going to go, no, that's not fair. I need 10 more minutes. Or they might say, throw the iPad, or they're going to react.
Yeah.
And so it's now this notion of going, oh my God, it didn't work. And that is potentially the 3rd biggest myth about conscious parenting, waiting for it to work.
Exactly.
It doesn't work like that. That's right. So when your kid reacts, you still will have to continue the cycle, and dependent on the temperament of the child. My favorite child to talk about is a strong-willed kid. Like, these kids can go on and negotiate. And so you have to maintain. I mean, true, you can't negotiate for an hour, right? I wouldn't recommend my parents ever doing that, but you have to maintain a sense of, okay, this is not a magic wand. There is something else going on where they're not accepting 20 minutes. Perhaps they were in the middle of a game, excuse me, playing with their friends from school, and they're the only ones that are going to get off this online game.
Yeah.
That's not going to sit very well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that is potentially, you know, these are the foundations. You and I are covering the foundations to conscious parenting. You've got to get through these principles to understand, you know, how to deal with the problems. You know, the first principle, you've got to understand that it's not permissive parenting. The second principle, you've got to understand that it's your job to be the mature adult. You've got to do the work. You've got to go get coached, therapy, learn. Instagram is not therapy. Instagram is not coaching.
Yeah.
Third principle that you have to learn is it is not a magic wand solution. Yeah. So when you do learn the why behind the behavior, and now you want to put it into practice, it's not always going to be like, da-da, oh, they've accepted not to have the blue plate.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I think that's why it's so important to learn these basic principles, especially the ones that you've just mentioned, because each family is so different. Every child is so different. Every parent is so different. And I think that that's where you bring in those principles and you kind of figure out your way sometimes yourself. Like, there's no one parenting journey that's the same to the next, or there's no one childhood that's the same. Even two kids, 3, 4 kids growing up in the same family experience totally different childhoods. And I think that's why it's so important. And especially if we have like certain boundaries, to kind of also not always question every single boundary that we have, but sometimes kind of think about it, like, okay, is this a rule because it suits me, it serves me, or does it serve us as a family, as a collective? Like you said with the gaming, like what is my idea or my intent behind my child getting off the game right now? Does it just serve the purpose just because, or is there maybe some more is there a way for him or her to gain more responsibility for their own playtime, you know, in a certain boundary, I'd say. So sometimes maybe we're stuck at our kid being 4 and we set up all the boundaries, but then when they become 15, that looks totally different. Yeah. So I would say let's move on to the heart of this podcast episode, which is sibling rivalry. So it's a lot of work figuring out, you know, yourself and getting to know yourself on a whole nother level. I think that's kind of, to me, what motherhood and parenthood is in general, just this introduction to a whole new version of yourself that you kind of forgot was there. Or, you know, because when we were kids, we were very much in tune, and then came, you know, all these strict rules and ways of dealing with, you know, who you were, and it kind of shaped and molded you. But when you become a mom or a dad, you realize like what's really important, and that you can no longer like overlook your own needs and not know how to deal with your emotions. It pretty much is a mirror to where you can look in closer. So that's what's difficult, is when there's more than one person whose needs have to be met at the same time, or that's what a conflict really is. It's when 2 people are trying to meet a certain need or have a certain need, and they want to get it met in the same moment. And so that's where it becomes difficult. What would you say? Are some key notions or some key principles regarding sibling rivalry that parents can use?
Okay, so hello to all the parents out there with more than one child, where you are literally facing different personalities and temperaments, and you are feeling torn, and you're feeling like the bickering is not ending. You're baffled, you're stumped, and you're tired of being like a judge, an umpire, referee. You know, it's it is tiring. I'm still there in the trenches, although I'm a lot better at handling it, obviously, but it's still very, very time consuming and energy consuming to constantly be breaking up battles. So with that being said, there are some key notions, as you said. Once again, we're going to cover some key principles to sibling rivalry. And, you know, I want listeners to understand that taking in this podcast is, think of it like seeds in your mind that have been planted, and now to harvest them and understand them more, you need to seek out further information. So think of these as seeds. First notion is that your children are their own individual person, same as you if you have siblings. You are connected perhaps by family name and blood and perhaps a bit, you know, genetics and all that stuff, but you are still your own individual person. Your child has got nothing to do with their sibling. They are their own complete, perfect being, already made up with who they are. And so with that being said, we need to go to principle 2, which is spending time with each child alone is the biggest helpful tip I can give parents. Now, why is that? Why is spending time alone supposed to endorse and help siblings get along? Because it's simple. When a child feels seen and heard for who they are, without any connection to anything, grades, how good they are, whether they like their sister or brother or not, when they're felt, when they feel seen and heard for who they are, then they'll have extra stamina, they'll have extra warmth for themselves. Their buckets will be filled in a way where they can actually have the energy to be listening to their sibling. So spending time alone and understanding each child for who they are and what they stand for is going to be so helpful. You know, another aspect to this topic is the word expectations, fantasies. I mean, if you've got the fantasy that your children are going to hold hands and run through a field of daisies together, then where? Give me that. Like, who said? Yes, it can happen. I am not discounting. Yes. Very rarely do siblings just naturally have that ability to do that. I get that. But in the majority of cases, and there's so much statistics out there, I'm not going to get into it, siblings have a hard time getting along because they're all essentially fighting for your attention. And so you've got to ask yourself, what are my expectations here? Am I expecting my 4-year-old to just give in and give the 2-year-old the toy because the 4-year-old just should know better? Or am I expecting them to just get along? You see, because conflict resolution is a learnt skill. Adults, all the time I hear this, by the way, sadly, all the time I hear this. Oh, I can't stand conflict. Oh, I run away from conflict. And so here we are expecting our children to just have a really nice fight about the toy and then nicely end it, when we as adults are so scared of nicely bringing up a topic to our colleague that they overstepped a boundary. I mean, adults even struggle with that. So how can we expect our 6-year-old to say, hey sis, that's my toy first. You can wait. And then parents expect them to come up with like this amazing idea. How about you wait 5 minutes and then it'll be, I mean, the kid needs practice on this. Yes, it's doable. Yes, a child can do that, but they need to have seen it, heard it, practiced it, do it. And now here's the thing, you can do and teach your child all of this. And sometimes it still won't work. Like sometimes kids will continuously fight, because here's the next principle that I want to tell everybody about is we don't know the hidden stories behind siblings. We don't know. Do you have siblings, Mina?
Yes, I do. I have
Yeah.
4. Yeah.
Yeah, same. So
Really?
do I. Yes. And I still, till this day, vouch that one particular sibling of mine can do no wrong in my parents' eyes. Like, that is still my opinion. And my parents will swear that is not true. But siblings come up with their own opinions based on their own baggage.
Yeah.
And that's what your siblings are going through. And more than that, siblings have got undercover stories. Let me tell you, that child that you think is the aggressor, the hitter, right? 9 times out of 10, there's a reason why they've done that. Maybe they're fed up because you're always saying, oh, darling, oh, you got hurt. Maybe they're fed up because you're constantly holding the baby. Maybe they've been poked and prodded silently by the quote unquote quiet kid. Maybe they've, the behavior has got a reason behind it. And so, bearing in mind that siblings have their own stories that we as parents can never understand, it's best to then move on to the idea of forming the role of moderator is what I teach my clients.
Yeah.
Let's drop being a judge and an umpire and think of yourself like a moderator.
Yeah.
And so moderators don't just sit there and say, oh, darling, sweetheart, oh, he snatched that off you. No, moderators jump in and they're all about safety. They're all about, non-bias communication. So in a really aggressive situation with 2 children kind of going at each other and hitting and punching and wrestling, yeah, your job is to get into the middle and physically separate. I don't want any of this like really, oh my gosh, please stop, please. No, you have to physically separate them because they can't. So we're going to physically separate and say, hey, there, no one's in trouble, but you can't be touching each other like that. Okay, I can see that you both want the red car. Okay, I can see there's only one red car, 2 children. That's a problem. So here are some options for you. So here's the thing. Parents are like, oh, but Maysaa, if we keep stepping in, I mean, yeah, if you keep stepping in, you're going to keep helping them come up with problem-solving techniques.
Yeah.
Because this is what I have found to be really pivotal in my experience of, raising children. There is a certain point that children reach where they no longer have the ability to problem solve. And the younger they are, the shorter that ability. Can you agree, Mina, with that idea?
Most definitely. Yeah. Yes.
So the younger the child, I mean, they've probably got a 2-year-old, let's say a 3-year-old's got like 60 seconds before their fuse is burnt, and sometimes even shorter. And so when I'm looking at my children, I'm looking, okay, so he's 11 and he's 10 and they're fighting. Okay, at 10 and 11, I'm not going to jump in the first second, but I am going to physically be there and help them when they've both reached the point. And the point that I call the point is when they've both hit a roadblock. Like, no, it's not. Yes, it is. No, it's not. Yes, it is. No, that is a roadblock. There is no way one of them is going to be able to go, okay, I'm going to take a deep breath and walk away.
Yeah.
I mean, adults can't do that, right?
Yeah.
They should though. Like, adults need to learn to do that, but children definitely can't. Their brains can't. So that is my role. You're the moderator. You need to be the one that decides, okay, you're both wanting that red car. I can see that. All right, both of you take a deep breath. Here are some ideas for you. And now you present your children with ideas. And I promise they will grab onto an idea. However, here's the thing. They're not going to grab onto the idea and go, oh my God, thank you, Mum. Wow, that was so cool. One of them is going to go, oh, whatever, fine, he can have it. Yeah. One of them is 100%. I've been parenting for like 19 odd years. One of them is going to do that, and you're going to be okay with that, because it's really hard conceding with a smile on your face after you've just gone through a huge amount of emotions, right? The other child is going to be like, see, he still doesn't let me. And that's okay, because now they're doing this like fall in emotions, and you're still going to be a moderator. You're still not going to pick. You're still not going to say, Harry, that is not a nice way of saying sorry. Say sorry again. because who can say sorry nicely when you're mad? Like, who can do that?
It's like, there's no.
Like, who can potentially control at 5 years old, control their emotions and say, sorry? No, they're going to go, sorry, whatever.
Yeah.
And you're going to be okay with that, because they're going to go, huh, mum's got her, you know what, together. And she's not losing it. I've lost it. She hasn't lost it. She's a safe place. And I keep saying mum, of course, dad as well, and whoever but just for the sake of, time, I'm thinking of myself here.
Yeah.
And now later on, Mina, this is the part later on when things are cool and calm and maybe you're having dinner together. Maybe you're popping your 6-year-old in bed. Maybe you're chilling out on the couch. I don't know. But that's when we start to converse and be like, hey, today when you and Harry were fighting, over that red car, and then mummy jumped in and then, all of that stuff happened. That was called a conflict. And that's okay. Here are some things you can do next time. And then you give them some ideas. Next time you see Harry really escalating, you can walk away, stomp your foot down and say, stop, find an adult.
Yeah.
And that is how we start to teach. And you know what, Mina? We need to repeat that many, many, many years.
Yeah.
Sorry to say, but why is it that we're okay with spending years and years teaching our kid the ABCs, right? Like we spend so many years, we put on different songs and books and we point out to all the letters and we quiz them and we do these really cool, like I've seen, on Instagram, all these cool number and letter hunts and matching and recognition and yet we want them to go bang with emotional stuff. Like just know how to share. Come on. Know how to be empathetic. Here's your little, brother. Just he's so little. Yeah. How can we just expect that?
Yeah.
And so go for it.
No, that's so it brought back a memory what you just said, because I remember telling my 2-year-old that one time. I was like, look, he's your brother, he's smaller than you. I think my second son, he was like 6 months or something like that. And then he was like, no, he's not. He's almost as big as I am. And in that moment, I was like, you know what? From his perspective, his brother is literally not that much smaller than him. We see the world through our eyes and expect, and we just like, no, okay, this is a baby, or this is a smaller toddler, and this is an older toddler. But in his mind, he's like, okay, we're just like a head apart. It's not, they can't understand, they don't see the world through our lens. They see it through, their little height, their little perspective. It's so small. And so just to keep that in mind, that a lot of times they're just like, okay, we're basically the same. They don't really think like, okay, he's much older than me, or he should be, I should be far more along than he is. And it's not true.
Especially, in the heat of the moment, that logic goes out the window. If you want to, and I do often teach my children about the different ages of, smaller and younger when things are calmer. And so I will say things to my 11-year-old, like, there's no way your 5-year-old can do the math sums you can do. Like at the moment in my household, of course, there's geniuses out there and gifted and whatever, but like for us, right, in my house, I said, he can't do the 12 times tables. So then there's no way his brain has the capacity to take that deep breath or not touch your Lego. So what we have to do is we have to help him not touch your Lego by remembering we had a Lego problem, for people that have followed me for ages, they would know that I had this Lego problem. 11-year-old, he was 9 back then. He loved his Legos, and 4-year-old back then, he was 4, would always touch the Legos and inevitably break them. Legos, right? They're breakable. And so my 9-year-old would get so mad. he would yell and hit and scream and, you know, get, you love him more, and these are my Legos, and, you know, all this stuff. And then in the end, I encourage parents to get creative. Like, you've got to solve this problem. This is a real problem for the 9-year-old. And so you got to work out what the problem actually is. What is the actual problem here? Well, the problem is that 4-year-old doesn't have any impulse control, sees flashy Legos, wants to play with them. 9-year-old doesn't want him to play with these Legos. So we worked out which Legos is 9-year-old happy for 4-year-old to touch. They came out. And then I went to IKEA and purchased a cupboard with a key and a lock.
I love that.
With a glass. Now, is that like teaching, you know, my 9-year-old never ever share? No, it's valuing that his really complex Lego pieces were getting ruined. It was actually reaching proportions of, we couldn't put them back together. Like, they were so complex. They're one of those, you know, like 1,000-piece whatever. Yeah. And so we moved houses and what have you, and we still have that cupboard. And, you know, a few days ago, now he's nearly 6, got into the cupboard and, you know, mucked around a bit and played a bit. And so for the 11-year-old now, I'm saying to him, there's no way that a 5-year-old can go, oh, brother has left the cupboard opened, I better not touch it, right? I mean, especially with my son's temperament. So my 5-year-old is a strong-willed child. Oh my gosh, she saw that cupboard open and he is like, it is the best day of my life.
Yeah.
And but in that heat of the moment, there was no way I even told my 11-year-old, why did you leave the cupboard? There's no way. You see, the way the brain works is when you're emotional, logic doesn't seep through. And you have to connect with the child. The reason why I do this is Dr. Dan Siegel's got the best analogy of the brain, you know, the upstairs and downstairs brain. And so when your downstairs brain is activated, that's your emotional brain. And when a kid is in the emotional brain, by the way, same with adults, but we'll just talk about children, you can't connect, like you gave that example with your 2-year-old. You can't say, well, he's actually a baby, because their emotional brain's like, no, he's not. He's big, and stop treating him like a baby, then maybe he'll stop being a baby, because that's their emotional brain. Logically, it makes no sense. Your 6-month-old is a baby. And so what you want to do in that heat of the moment, here's some, you know, free advice for parents, is just cut out the logic. Go straight into, oh my gosh, he touched your Lego? Yeah, totally not allowed. Let me come and lock the door for you. Yeah. And so what you've done there is you've gone straight to helping his emotions settle. He's still mad. At no point am I telling you that my kids straight away go, oh yes, thank you, mommy. We're past that. I've given enough examples of that. But now he's kind of like taken a breath and he's gone. So he went from like being roaring angry to going, yeah, and he's never allowed to touch anything ever again. So now he's up to that. I'm still not going to go, well, that's a little bit over the top, darling, isn't it? I'm still not going to do that. And I'm going to go, okay. And now I'm going to go to the 5-year-old and be like, hey, that's actually not yours. Now, notice, I am going to come in and physically remove the Lego piece from my 5-year-old's hands if I deem that's the reasonable thing to do, because I am the moderator. And if he's managed to get hold of that intricate piece, now I remove the piece from his hands and I've placed it back in the cupboard. Is my 5-year-old going to go, fair call, mum? Yeah. That's no. Now he has erupted into this volcanic eruption of emotion. 11-year-old seems to be fine now. He's taken the keys, and now I go to my 5-year-old, and now we deal with that. Is this easy? No. Is it convenient? No. Is it exhausting? Yes. Yeah. But they didn't sign up to be born. Like, they didn't choose this life. We chose it. And so we have to help them. Yeah. So now I turn my attention to my 5-year-old. He's not in trouble. I'm going to understand his emotional brain. I'm going to validate and empathize that was an amazing piece. And then I'm going to help him problem solve, connect to something else. And it might sound something like, that was a really nice piece you were playing with, but your brother doesn't want you to play with that. How about we get the dominoes out. And here's the thing with children 10 and under. I haven't done full like a thesis on this. This is just my 19 years of experience. I have not done any thesis, but parents, I promise children 10 and under, sometimes 13 and under, if you've got a tight bond, will always choose to play with the parent over anything else. I stand by that. Even over screens, even over screens, done with sincerity. I'm not asking parents to be like, let's go play Uno. Like the kid's gonna be like, bull. I don't believe that.
Yeah.
Like me inviting you over, Minna, for a coffee. You coming over and you're like looking at your time and just on your phone. I'm gonna feel like you don't want to be there, right? But done with sincerity. Hey, I really want to play Uno with you. Let's go. I promise your kid is gonna be like, oh, okay, and off they go.
Exactly, because they can read energy. They don't just listen to the words. It's how you present that exact offer that they're going to be like, okay, yes, I'm ready. I want to play Uno with you. If you're like saying it in a boring tone, or like, I really don't feel like playing with you, but come on, let's just go. They're going to be like, okay, this is off. So
they read that BS meter so quickly. They can see, if you're doing it with an agenda as well. They're like, she wants me to have a shower after this. This is why she's doing this. That kind of. And so what you want to do is attempt to play with your child with no agenda. It doesn't always work. There's no working here. This is just a choice for parents to pick up what they can from this podcast and choose what works in that moment. Is it always going to work like that? No, because every scenario is complex. It comes with every single human in that scenario has got a different feeling that they're going through.
Exactly.
Okay, next.
So let's recap a little bit. So you said that the best approach would be to become the moderator. And I always say that a moderator actually asks really good questions. So I love that you said, come in and you make sure that everyone is safe. That's the first most important thing, is safety, and even the emotional safety as well. And so then you kind of like you kind of see, okay, who needs the most attention? Who is having a situation where they need co-regulation, right? And once you're done with one child, the next child will probably be like, okay, it's my turn, and then they need emotional regulation as well. And why we as parents have to step in is because children need co-regulation their whole entire childhood until their nervous system is fully developed. So that's why we are their support system until they are ready and able to do it themselves, to regulate themselves. And just because they can doesn't mean they always will. That's like that with us adults too. We can do a lot of things, but we don't always choose to do those things. And just having that compassion for ourselves and for our children, I think, goes a long way. And then I think you also mentioned, what's the last thing where you said just so much. It was so much, but I just really like that you said, these are just some choices. These are just some eye openers. They kind of shift your perspective a little bit from what you have been doing, and you can see what fits in each situation. And sometimes it fits, and then in other situations that may be very similar, you're like, why isn't this working? And it's because there's something else there that maybe you're missing.
Yes, totally agree.
Yeah. So I think that we covered all the tips that you have for sibling rivalry. I would say I have 3 questions that our community, I actually asked our community, hey, we're doing this podcast. What are some questions that you have concerning sibling rivalry? And let's see if we can kind of give a few statements. So the first question is, my eldest daughter interrupts every step that her little sister takes. In general, she wants to control a lot that her sister does. How can I deal with the situation?
Okay, so outside of the moment, you need to understand that your older child is looking for some connection, and there's a reason, there's a story behind it. I mean, I don't know it all, but I'm going to guess she could be really concerned for her sister. She could be overly anxious. She could be wanting attention. She could be just wanting to share the spotlight with her sister. So dependent on what the reason is. So outside of the moment, sit down with your oldest child and have a chat with her. Hey, the other day when we were watching your sister, rehearse for her play in front of us, and you like kind of jumped in, what was going on? And get an idea, get a sense, get some understanding about what her reasoning is. You want to do this in a really cool, calm way, perhaps after dinner, or, full tummies and having a cuddle. And then in the heat of the moment, what you want to do is understand that they're both trying to get their needs met, and you need to navigate like a moderator and perhaps say, oh, hey, Sally, thank you so much. Come and sit with me on my lap, and then you're going to have a turn next. And then, like we just said before, a few things could happen, and this isn't the place for a million different nuances, but the idea is to keep you are the steering, the steerer. You're going to be the navigator of this scenario. And what is your intention? Your intention is to watch your little daughter show you something that your big daughter keeps interrupting. So how can I do that without holding any shame? Well, we call our big daughter and we give her an opportunity to show us something too later.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. Okay, so the next question is, my boys are 5 and 6. I constantly struggle with sibling rivalry. How can we manage to better? I think there's been a lot of key notions in this podcast to kind of hearing this question. Is there anything you'd like to add in, or do you feel like it's pretty much been covered?
I feel like we covered a lot. This is a common scenario, especially with children close in age. We forget that first notion that I taught you all, which is that they're still individual beings. Doesn't matter, how close they are, even for twins, like everybody's their own temperament, their own person. So what we want to do in this scenario is pinpoint, what are you doing? Because if you've always done what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. So you have to understand, where in this can I change something about me?
Yeah.
What can I do after listening to this podcast, after getting some advice? What can I do differently?
Yeah, I love that so much because, I experience this often with my kids. If I'm having like a day where I'm like off and I'm just like, oh, and then I decide to shift my own attitude, I notice how everything around me shifts. Like my kids, well, they're just all of a sudden it's like, okay, they're in a better mood. They act different. They cooperate easily because they're like, okay, this feels safe and I can go with this and this feels good. So they start immediately feeling and acting better as well. So I love that. I love that point.
Thank you.
The next and last question would be, when is the best time to intervene, and when do you allow them to settle their conflicts themselves?
Yeah. So, as I stated earlier, the best time to intervene is when you feel like they've reached their capacity. And when do you let them settle it themselves? When you're confident enough that they've got the skill set to do so. So if you've got a 5 and 6-year-old, check your expectations. They're not going to have the skill set to do so if they haven't been taught how to solve a problem. So that's the best advice I can give you. And of course, reach out to coaches to teach you that.
Exactly. I love that. I always say as well, if it's getting physical, definitely safety first. That's like the number one ground rule. The safety comes first. Definitely intervene there. But if you see them like having a constructive conflict, like constructive in the sense of it makes sense, they're just trying to hash it out with words, and they haven't reached that wall that you were talking about. Then you can definitely allow them to, finish their conversation. If you realize, then you can verbally reach in and say, okay, I have an idea. Would you guys like to hear it? I'm a big fan of asking questions, because I feel like the more open a question is, the more space they also have to, if they are at capacity, of course. If you're noticing like at their limit, they're about to boil over, don't ask any questions, because they would just be like, are you kidding me? I need help. So yeah. And that's the last question. But you have a parenting workshop coming up around this topic, sibling rivalry. I love that. So tell us more about it.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm running a workshop all about sibling rivalry. So it's, 3 solid hours worth of understanding, learning skills and strategies, and unpacking a heap of scenarios together. I'll be running live coaching. I'll be taking any questions and answers. You'll get a comprehensive workbook. So all of that information is found on my bio in the link in my Instagram, which I'm hoping you can share. And essentially, this workshop was designed to create more harmony in the household, not perfect solutions, but more navigating that really complex relationship of siblings. And so if you find that you're struggling, if you find that you're like, okay, I don't know what to do, my children are always fighting, then I encourage you to come along to this. The dates are, May the 9th for Zoom, and if you're in Dubai, May the 8th, and all details are on my link in my bio.
Hey, so May the 9th, I will definitely link all that information in the show notes. And also the link in your bio will be in the show notes as well, so that everybody has access to that. Yeah, thank you so much. I really enjoyed this episode. It was a lot of cool gems that you dropped in this episode, most definitely. And I think there are a lot of great takeaways already that parents can grab. And if they feel like they need more support, definitely join your workshop. I think that's great. So the workshop that's on Zoom, is there a time for that already, or?
Yeah, so there's 2 choices. It's either 2 p.m. Dubai time or 8 p.m. Dubai time. So I've kind of gone with the 2 slots to try to assist as many time zones as possible.
Okay, and there's already an option to join whichever one they would like. Is that already
Yeah,
available? Okay, great.
yeah.
Great. Okay, well, thank you so much again. It was really an honor. Thank you so much that you took your time to do this podcast and enriching so many parents' lives with all the gems that you've dropped. I really appreciate it.
Thanks.
And
I really enjoyed it. Thank you, Mina.